guest speakers for us today. I did have to make a change from my original plan. So I'm Sarah Kirkpatrick, if you haven't met me already, and I'm the SASI grant coordinator here at Oregon Department of Education. And then instead of Leanna Hyman, the TAP grant administrator, I have Michael Elliott in today. Just introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Elliott, Managing Director of School Facilities. I oversee a lot of the programs, including the SASI grant as well as the TAP grant. So Leanna unfortunately was called away on an emergency, so I will be filling in for her and hopefully doing her justice.
And then Adam Krein is here in case he needs to answer some questions. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Adam Krein. I work with Sarah and Michael, and as the Facility Assessment Program Administrator. So some of you on the call, actually everybody on the call has had a facility condition assessment completed by ODE and Bureau Veritas, and hopefully you've received those reports. The only update I have is that we are working to get a summary for you guys so that all of those reports are condensed down into something smaller, more digestible. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Adam. And Gloria, our star of our presentation today.
Hi, I'm Gloria Zacharias. I work for Business Oregon, otherwise known as the Oregon Department of Business Development, and I am the Seismic Program and Policy Coordinator.
Thank you. So, Michael, can you start with just talking a little bit about the TAP program and the seismic part of it?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So again, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here to talk about the Technical Assistance Program. This is a program run out of the Office of School Facilities that provides relatively small grants to districts and ESDs to help them access larger sums of money. In this case, we're going to focus on the seismic assessment, which has been there from the beginning. The seismic assessment, you get $25,000 per grant, and the grant, we'll cover the calendar here in a bit, but the $25,000 per grant gives you money to hire your structural engineer to come in and do a full-blown assessment of 1 to 3 school buildings in order to set you up for success in the SRGP. So this includes not just a walkthrough of the building, but also includes all of the schematics needed to show what improvements need to be made, identifying those improvements need to be made, and generally providing you with a complete assessment that can port over directly to the Seismic Rehabilitation Grant Program. One of the good news about this is because the TAP program has been around for several years now, many of the structural engineers are aware of it. They're also aware of the SRGP. So if you hire structural engineers that are familiar with the SRGP, they can take this grant money and be even more efficient and ensure they're getting you what you need to succeed. Well, maybe not succeed, but at least have a high quality application that SRGP can review. We do have administrative rule requirements around the TAP program. And again, the good news is those align with the SRGP requirements. So really trying to work hand in hand with Gloria's program. So districts are not out any money to get these assessments because they're expensive. And then that gives them access to larger funds for Gloria's program. Next slide, please. So our timeline, we are actually just getting ready to start. Applications will open in 2 days, and we have made an update this year. They're going to be off of Microsoft Forms, so you can just go online, fill out a form. It should be very straightforward, and there's a month to apply. So you can go ahead and, sometime between January 15th and February 15th, go ahead and apply. We review the applications according to preference points set out in rule, and then we will announce who is awarded by March 15th, 2025. The good news is that the TAP program has generally been able to award all, if not most, all of the applications. And so it is well worth your time to apply, at least to the TAP program. We do require grant agreements signed. I said June 15th. I think that's a typo on my part. I apologize. June 1st. I believe TAP grant agreements must be signed by June 1st. And then you basically get 18 months to do the work. So that's to hire your seismic assessment personnel, have the assessment done, have the reports done. So by December 31, 2026, you will have to submit your invoices and final documents. Now, that's not to say that that's where probably the only, if you will, misalignment could be with Gloria's program, just because she opens her applications when she has funding available. And so sometimes it doesn't quite align. So if you're seriously considering an SRGP, make sure you do this earlier, because this does take a while. And I think, Gloria, you give them several years of validity for these assessments to be done. So
They're
earlier
good for
is
5 years.
better. They're good for 5 years. So if you're thinking of going within the next 2 to 3 years, it's better to have all of this work done so you can just submit it into Gloria's program. The other thing we try to do is we do a 6-month look back. So if you're gung-ho and you have the funds, you're like, I'm going to cover this whether I get a grant or not, you can start work. Actually, I'm sorry, that's another typo on my part. Sorry, July 1, 2024. So we look back 6 months. So if you've already started this work, you can use that work as a basis for an application to the TAP program. And if you get the grant, you can cover costs for the 6 months previously, July 1, 2024. The typos that are not there, or these are not typos, and that is, again, January 15th to February 15th is when the application's open. Next slide. And again, questions, Leanna Hyman is our best person to discuss this. If you have questions while she's away, please send them to myself, and also the ode.schoolfacilities inbox. That's ode.schoolfacilities@ode.oregon.gov. Several of us monitor that inbox and can help you with there. If you have any immediate questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or I will be around and we can wait till the end of the presentation as well.
I just put Leanna's website in the chat, so you can visit that and find the application forms there. And does anyone have any questions for Michael before we move on to the large part of the program? All right.
Okay.
It is all you.
First of all, I'd like to say, Michael, I'm really jealous you had one slide. So I have several more than that. You can go on to the next slide. I'm Gloria Zacharias, and I am the program person for the Seismic program. Just a little bit of background on how the program began. Here's the ballot measures, when they were passed, the articles in the Constitution. That's a little bit of a difference here in the department that I work for. Most of our programs were created in statute by the legislature. This is the one program that was created by a vote of the people. It was created in a ballot measure and passed and started being funded after that. Next slide. These are in 2007. There was a seismic risk assessment done by a rapid visual screening by the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, and these are some of their findings. There's 1,575 buildings that were high risk or moderate risk for schools, and 418 that were high risk or moderate risk for emergency services buildings. Next slide. The program first got funded in 2008 and was originally managed by the Office of Emergency Management. They are now the Department of Emergency Management. That changed in January of 2014, or in 2024. The program was first funded with $30 million, and it was moved to our department by the legislature in January of 2014. Next slide. The program is available to public school districts K through 12, community colleges, and then on the emergency side, we do first responders, fire districts, hospitals, police stations, 911 centers. An eligible school building has to be owned by a school district or an education service district. Community colleges are eligible and must be owned by a community college or a community college service district. When the program began, 4-year universities were eligible, but there has been a change in their legislation, and four-year universities are no longer eligible for the program. So K through 12 and community colleges. The language is around who must own the building. So again, only buildings that are owned by a school district or an education service district as far as K through 12. The program covers direct seismic related expenses, but cannot be used for demolition or new construction. This is also a result of how the ballot measure was written and voted into the Constitution. It was voted in as a seismic rehabilitation program only. So that's the expenses that can be used. We cannot acquire a new facility or build new construction or prepare vacant buildings for new uses. The intent of the program is to prioritize holistic seismic projects which address all known building deficiencies according to an engineering assessment, and the program does not fund partial building retrofits. Another difference between the TAP grant and the SRGP is that we do not look back. You have to have a signed contract with the state in order to start incurring any expenses that are going to be reimbursed through the program. Next slide. The legislature, the program is funded by state general obligation bonds, and the legislature allocates that funding at the beginning of each biennium. The program usually receives 150 million, 100 for schools and 50 for emergency services. And then there are 2 bond sales in the biennium. So we generally announce an application round in the fall of each year, and awards are announced in the spring. In fact, last Friday, the 10th at 5 o'clock was the deadline for this current round to have applications in. We received 98 applications. 25 were emergency services and all the rest were schools. This is the second year of the biennium, and we have 45 million available for schools to be awarded and 25 for emergency services. Next slide. This is just an example of the application announcement. We get Michael's group to send it out to all school districts so that everyone it's announced to everyone. We put it on our website, and we get cities and counties to forward it out to the emergency services folks. Next slide. This is what each application must contain. And again, I'm jealous of Michael because he has an electronic application capability. My department does not currently have the capability to accept electronic applications, although our IT department is currently working on developing a program that could make that happen, hopefully in the near future. But until that program is complete, we have a fillable PDF form for the application. We consider the application packet to be a living document, and we try to update it as often as possible. So if you're planning on applying for the program, I recommend that you don't keep an application from 2 or 3 years ago that you use, but every round we post all the new forms on our website, and I recommend that you use the new forms and our new guidance pieces because we update those regularly also. Each building is eligible for a $2.5 million grant maximum. All seismic deficiencies that are called out in the engineering assessment must be addressed in the proposed scope of work. There is no match required unless the cost for the particular project that you're doing is greater than 2.5 million. And if it is, the district must commit the additional funds at the time of application and include a letter of commitment. Next slide. This is the application form, a simple PDF, fillable PDF that you can go in off the website and grab and fill it in. Next slide. We also require a cost benefit analysis. The cost benefit analysis of seismic retrofits estimates the average annual damages, economic losses, and monetized statistical casualties by considering the full range of earthquake ground shaking levels and integrating the damage probability relationship for 2 states of a building, the existing building and the building after the seismic retrofit. The average annual damage does not mean that those damages occur every year, rather that the average annual damage is an estimate of the average damage per year over a long time period, such as 50 or 100 years. The benefit cost ratio calculated is the net present value of the reduction in average annual damages. So it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. The benefit cost analysis is in an Excel spreadsheet, and all of the really hard data points are behind the spreadsheets that you will see. And we have guidance pieces that walk you through it. And you just fill in the data points that we ask for. A lot of it is on cost of your building to rebuild your building, cost to replace things that are inside your building, and then occupants. And retrofits having a benefit cost ratio of greater than 100 are deemed cost effective. Next slide. This is the first page of the benefit cost analysis tools, just so you can see the type of information that we're looking for. Next page, or next slide, thank you. And this is where it actually calculates. In the yellow box is what the score is for your particular building. Yeah, this particular building anyway. Okay, next slide. This is a map from USGS and is just a good visual of where the very high, moderately high, moderate and low seismicity zones are. And obviously the red and the orange are the extremely high and very high. And then it gets cooler as you go across the page. But there are all kinds of seismicity zones in the state of Oregon. We have several different faults, one in Central Oregon, a couple in Southern Oregon, and then of course along the coast and down the I-5 corridor. Next slide, please. The school buildings, other than areas which may be used as emergency shelters, must be retrofit to what we basically call life safety. However, almost all of the school applications that are coming in now are to the higher standard of immediate occupancy. And that's required if we're doing a gymnasium, a library, an auditorium, a commons area. Any large area that could be used as an emergency shelter is required to be to the higher performance, required to be retrofit to the higher performance objective. Next slide, please. Each application is reviewed by the department, and then it is uploaded and reviewed by our consulting engineers who are out of Seattle. The program receives more applications each round than can be funded. The applications that obviously that we received today or on Friday, there's 98 of them. There will probably be 2 to 3 times more than we have available to fund. So the committee generally starts with very high risk buildings. I think it's on the next slide. I talk about our advisory committee. There's a 20-person advisory committee made up of public and private members. They meet once per year in the spring, and they recommend recipients to the Business Oregon Deputy Director, who signs those recommendations. The consulting engineers, the department, and the Seismic Advisory Committee start with worst buildings first. So if you have a building that is in very bad shape, like a unreinforced masonry building that's probably going to fall down with a big wind, those are the ones that score the highest. They go to the top. If you have a building that is less rickety, you're lucky that because your building's not a bad building, but you're also probably going to fall farther to the bottom of the funding category. The committee will start down the list and fund all of the worst buildings as far down as they can get until they're out of funding each year. Next slide. I got ahead of myself. Here you go. The application's prioritized by worst buildings first. And then the second criteria, such as geographic diversity, number of previous grants, the district's demonstrated ability to complete past grant-funded projects, and the district's ability to pass a construction bond. The committee is very, very good at being sure that the funds are spread throughout the state. It would be real easy for the committee to look at, okay, we're going to fund everything on the coast and everything down the I-5 corridor, and everybody else is out of luck. And that's not how it is. I believe there's only 3 counties now in the state that have never received one of these grants, and that's because we haven't ever received an application from those counties. So I'm really proud of the fact that the committee takes a serious look at spreading the funding across the state. Next slide, please. This is some of the program accomplishments. 346 school projects, 157 emergency services projects, and those are some pretty big numbers that we have funded. And again, this spring we'll be awarding 45 million more school projects and 25 million more emergency services projects. Once the committee has agreed on award recommendations, they are sent to the deputy director for final approval. And then we get the contracts out, and contracts are sent by email to each awarded project. And once those contracts have been signed by both the district and the state, they can begin accruing expenses that are going to be reimbursed by the program. Okay. I think the next slide is yours.
Yes. So I was hoping that you could talk about the building capacity at 250, not necessarily the community having 250 members.
Yes. Part of the requirement is that the building be able to hold 250 occupancy, minimum occupancy. And again, that is not how many students are enrolled in your district. That is how big the building is. So if you have a very tiny modular building, it's not going to be eligible for the program. Your building has to hold a minimum of 250 people to be eligible. It doesn't mean there ever has to be 250 in it, but buildings of that size or greater are the ones that are eligible for the program.
And then that you need to have a qualified structural engineer firm to do your report for your application.
Right. Just like Michael talked about, the TAP grant, all of their qualifications for their TAP grant and their assessment are the same as ours. You need a qualified structural engineer who is licensed to work in the state of Oregon, do a complete structural analysis of your building. And that will include all of the deficiencies, and that will include a proposal to fix all of those deficiencies. That will include a cost of the project and the benefit cost analysis. Those are all pieces of that that many times the engineer does for you.
And how long do they have if they receive the grant to use the money?
It's about 2 years. It's almost 2.5 years. But if you were awarded this spring in 25, you would have till September 30th of 27. 2027.
Okay. So quick little interruption. Those of you that are on, if you could please rate this training, and I'm going to just put it up as a poll. It is going to be a 1 through 5. Are you satisfied with this training to not? This helps me with figuring out what I want to do and how we're doing. So you could please do that, or you could put it in the chat. That would be great. And if it's not coming up, let me know if it did not come up.
And I am happy to take any questions too. I know I
And
talked super fast, but I wasn't sure how long it was going to take to get through all the slides. So I wanted to be sure that we covered everything.
so definitely, if you have questions for either Michael or Gloria, please ask them. And share back up. So the recording will take me a couple days. I have to get approval by our communications to have it go up onto our web. So it'll probably definitely be there by the end of the week. And the recording will be on the SASI page, which I just put up there on the chat.
I see Phil has a question.
Yes, I'm with the Butte Falls School District. We received a seismic rehabilitation grant around 2018 when the amount was $1.5 million as a cap. So at our high school campus, we had to cut some projects down. We're a small rural remote district, and the building that is of biggest concern to me is our shop, which is has a metal shop and a wood shop, and it's unreinforced concrete masonry type stuff where they actually put bricks over windows, and it's a timbered roof that is all nailed and doesn't. And we've submitted a couple times for this, and I think what I'm figuring out is I don't know that the capacity for it would be 250. And yet it's an area that it hinders us not having a structurally being confident in it to be able to use it fully like we'd like to. So is that a disqualifier
If
from the
yes, if the building doesn't have minimum occupancy of 250, if it can't hold 250, then it would fall to the bottom of the funding list. And you've actually received two, one
Yes.
for your high school and one for your elementary school.
Correct. And the one for the elementary was for 2.5 million, and we were able to accomplish a lot and put about $600,000 worth of safety things alongside that to really make that a Red Cross quality place where people could be. I'm just trying to figure out how in this it's crippling our district that we can't tend to this building. We don't have at this point, our enrollment's been dropping, a way to tend to this facility. I'm just trying to figure out if there's any other revenue streams. We can't bond, haven't passed a bond since 67. So sounds to me like I probably already got my answer to whether we're eligible or will receive anything this year.
Again, you're definitely eligible to apply. The problem is if we get, double to triple the amount of applications. So one that is smaller than 250 is probably not likely to be funded, partly because it's in our rules that say
Sure.
it has to have 250. So there would have to be a waiver. So we'd have to get a waiver from our director to fund that. And it would be swallowed up by all of those projects that are above it on the list because they meet all those qualifications.
Okay, has that rule been in place from the outset? The 250?
Yes, it has. Yeah, from the very
Okay.
beginning.
I'm curious why we haven't heard in the previous two, maybe just because it was rank low and so it didn't get funded. That would have been helpful. I probably wouldn't have had someone resubmitting every 2 years. But okay, it is what it is. Thank you. That answered my
welcome.
question. So thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Well, if anyone thinks of any other questions, you can feel free to email or call myself. Leanna, like we said, she's going to be out for a bit, but that is her email address, or Gloria. And I hope that you will reach out. This is just one of the webinars I'll be holding this year. We'll be doing some more on safety and on contractors. So look forward to some more invites this year from the SASI grant on how to do all things school facilities. So thank you very much, Gloria. I so much appreciate
you.
you
Sure.
volunteering to be here
Yeah.
today, and Michael stepping in last minute.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, have a great
Okay.
afternoon, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.